Guys, this is Tom Marr with Tom Marr Lifestyle and Real Estate. Today, I'm here with Richard Hawksworth with First Community Mortgage.
Hey, everybody.
Cool. And one of the main questions right now is, we're all concerned about a lot of the homes are sitting on the market without having any showings lately, mainly because of interest rates being so high. And yeah, there's something now that they're talking about to where you can buy down interest rates. Would you mind telling us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that's interesting is that so many buyers have expressed that they're not necessarily out of the market permanently. They've just gotten priced out of the market.
Right.
So many people aren't even necessarily scared of the number behind the interest rate, but they're scared of the payment. And a lot of times they're even willing to take on the payment if they could qualify, but they just can't.
Right.
Because we've seen kind of an unprecedented scenario where prices have gone up and the rates that were kind of artificially making that affordable, if you want to call it that, those have gone away. So now you've got the higher price and the higher rate. And so what's happened, and the challenge for somebody who does what I do, is you have people that you've qualified that'll call you from 6 months ago where they were pre-approved 2 points lower, and it's like, hey, yeah, you were pre-approved here, and now you're here.
Right.
And so that's been a big factor. But yeah, so one of the things that we've done in the mortgage world to combat that is offering the buy down options, and a lot of people are aware of there's really kind of two different sectors of that. You've got your permanent buy down, and then you've also got your temporary buy downs. And really what a lot of people are considering now, permanent buy downs in this market are extremely expensive. In fact, there have been times as the Fed has continued to raise interest rates that most lenders have not even had prime rates, basically meaning without a cost, basically meaning that you go to lock an interest rate and there on the whole pricing chart, there may not even be a number that doesn't have a cost associated with it. And so from the jump, you're paying points.
So
thankfully, go ahead.
How does that work with the permanent buy down, like number wise, right?
Yeah.
What's it based on to determine the amount that it'll take to buy it down?
There are a lot of factors. It's a great question. There are a lot of factors. The current market is really the heaviest indicator of what that cost is going to be. Now there is kind of a, at the end of the day, it may cost, let's say that buying it down 3/4 of a point, that may cost 1.5 points, may cost 2 points. It really depends on the pricing sheet. So there's not necessarily a formula you could follow that just says, hey, if you're trying to lower your rate by 1/8, here's how much it's going to cost.
Right.
It really depends on the investor. It depends on just how they're pricing that particular product. But what is pretty consistent is the cost of a permanent buy down, which is, hey, for the next 15, 20, 30 years, whatever term you're talking, I'm going to pay X amount of dollars to lower my rate permanently to this number. What is consistent is right now, that's just incredibly expensive. The reason for that, lenders are not wanting to have a ton of exposure in a lower interest rate where we don't know what rates are going to drop to in the future. And so when you look at the investor is going to say, hey, well, if I'm going to offer you, if rates are at a 7, to get down to a 6.5, it's going to cost a lot of money because I don't know at what point rates really get to that point in the future. But one of the great options that a lot of builders, sellers have been taking advantage of has been the temporary buy down option. The most common right now is the 2-1 buy down, where basically, and I'll send you a PDF that kind of shows how that works and how it gets priced. But basically, the way it works is there's 2 years that it buys down the interest rate. Why is that number the number we're playing with? Because most experts agree that as the consumer pricing index has indicated that at this point it looks like inflation is, thank goodness, starting to come down some. Because of that, rates are not anticipated to stay this high for very long. The hope is that maybe by mid to late next year, we're seeing rates considerably lower. And so but people are buying houses today.
Right.
That
That's
what
not
happens.
gonna stop.
Right.
Everybody
That's
needs
not
that house.
exactly. So the housing market, people still have to eat and live indoors, and so at the end of the day, the 2-1 buy down is great because it says, hey, for the first year, it's going to buy my interest rate down, say from a 7 to a 5.5, and then next year it'll adjust up to a 6.5, and so it will buy your interest rate down for the short term, giving the market time to ease and for rates to come down. Because again, the hope is within the time that it takes to get down to, say 4.5%, 5% interest rates. Nobody has a crystal ball,
Right.
but whatever it takes to get rates back into a slightly more reasonable range. Basically, it will help buyers to have a more reasonable payment. Because again, buyers are in a great position now because houses aren't inflated like they were in terms of total sales price, the way that they even would be now when inventory was so incredibly low.
Right.
So the buyer really wins because you're getting a price that's much more reasonable than what you would be paying if the competition was just out the roof. Because rates are still artificially low at 2.875-3%.
And there's no bidding wars at the top of that.
Exactly.
It's driving it even higher. At that
Right.
point.
No bidding wars. And so you're really, and what I'm telling all of my customers is marry the house, date the rate.
I do love that saying. I'm going to use it more often.
Yeah, marry the house, date the rate, because again, so many people have come back to me and said, well, Richard, I think I'm just going to wait. I think I'm just going to wait until rates go back down. And my advice always is that's fine, but just realize that the house that you're looking at that may be priced at, we'll just throw out a random number of $300,000. It may be $300,000 while interest rates are at 7%, but I promise you once interest rates are back down in the mid 4s, 5s, whatever that is, that price, the competition grows,
Right.
the price grows.
Supply and demand.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Basic supply and demand, we all know it. And so at the end of the day, it's important to recognize that if you can lock in the price at $300,000, the rates come and go. The rates go up, the rates go down. It's the nature of what.
Hence, dating the rate, you can always find someone to date or go for a lower rate.
Right, absolutely. And so, but you're committing, at the end of the day, you go to refinance that house in 12 months. It's not going to say, well, really that house is worth this now, so you're refinancing this amount. You're still getting to refinance based on, hey, I bought it for $300, so I paid it down to here. This is all I'm having to refinance unless you're pulling cash out.
Right. So a big question though. So with the 2-1 buy down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say within 12 months, interest rates do go down, but they already bought down the rate. How does that work after that?
Yeah, and that's that's one of the big conversations. I always tell my customers, we don't just blindly say, hey, this is what the market, this is what makes sense for you, so let's just do this. We always like to compare the options. And so one of the great things about, where we are right now, 6 months ago, how many times were you saying sellers paying all closing costs?
6 months ago?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like you can ask for closing costs, you're probably going to get laughed at. But it wasn't happening. Now, it's like, hey, ask for all closing costs. They're probably going to be paid. And so the same thing is true with getting the seller to pay for the buy down. And the conversation that I'm having with our customers right now is because we're so confident that with the way that the Fed fights inflation is by raising interest rate. The rate when 100% of the time when they have raised interest rates to fight inflation, they've always pushed us into a recession. What's the only way to speed the economy back up? Lower interest rates. Right. And so at the end of the day, we're confident enough in there are very few things in the mortgage world or real estate you can say is 100% correct, 100% predictable. That's one of them. They've always pushed us into recession. And so because of that, the conversation I'm having with our customers is if the seller is having a hard time moving a property and is willing to pay for that buy down for you, it's probably a big win. Take it, run with it, and congratulations, we'll high five at the closing table.
Right.
But a real conversation is there are a lot of people out of fear that are paying for a 2-1 buy down that don't realize, hey, when you write out the numbers, when you compare apples to apples, if rates drop in 12 months, you lose. And that's a very real thing, at the end of the day, because if you may be able to refinance, but you've already spent $3,000 in order to get this lower rate, and you've only saved yourself in a lower payment, $1,100. Well, Did you come out ahead? No, you wasted $2,000. And so that's But like you said, showings are down, and so the odds of being able to use seller concessions, or have the seller pay towards or the builder pay towards a 2-1 buy down, those odds are really good. And hey, it makes it more affordable, and it gives you just one more reason why buying now when the prices are consistent. They're not, you're not getting into 15, 20. I mean, we both experienced that, where it's like, hey, it's been on the market 2 days. There are 138 offers, and so we'll just take the top 10 and throw a dart at it. But thankfully it's not that way anymore. And so you can buy a house with far less competition and come back and refinance later. You just don't want to have left money on the table by paying for a 2-1 buy down, or even a permanent buy down out of your own pocket, realizing that rates will come down. You don't want to waste money unnecessarily. And so fear is never a good motivator to do anything. So if you can utilize the seller's willingness to want to accelerate the process of of selling their house, great. But be careful of buying down your rate just out of fear, when I think better rates are on the horizon. Absolutely.
Or on the way.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, guys, man, Richard, that was a lot of great knowledge to get from you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
If you guys have questions, reach out to me or Richard. I'll put his contact info in the link below. And love to hear from you guys, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Cool. I think that was pretty darn good, man.
Cool.
Let's see here.
One take. I'll take it.